resume the budget committee meetings. Today's date's the 18th of August. Time is 45. Form 4Bs.
I have made all the changes that we discussed last week. And so I have, we have a different, budget estimate, proposed budget, because we've shifted some appropriations to other funds. And what that allowed was that our number for payroll, that I think that you could potentially use for a payroll number for like the general fund, all the levy funds is the ones I was worried about, and still stay within the max or the levies that we had set before, so that we maintain an operating balance. So I guess the point is, we need to figure out if you want that number to be higher. And I also gave you this sheet, and that shows you where we were at in 2022, what was adopted, and with that number of 27,731, 732, what that looks like when you break it down to include FICA and PERF and all that. So, which, quite honestly, I don't even think you can cover your PERF, not your PERF, your longevity with that for the general fund, because Julian just gave me that, so I need to look at those numbers, because I need to add the sheriff in. But it would be close on, you might be able to do the longevity and a little bit more. So your options would be that if you wanted to have a higher percentage increase overall, you would have to look at reducing your operating balance. Your operating balance. Sorry, I got away from it. But so, like I said, and these are not, I just tried to keep, when I was plugging them in, I got to a number that fit in the general fund, and I was trying to make them be somewhat consistent in the other funds, to make sure that at least it was more than what we had advertised for, or we had done for 22. So if you come back to this page, and this is basically your 4B, here is your operating balance, 16,766, and I've shifted the operating balance that's projected for county general, 16,766,782. And I've shifted levies from health, park, reassessment to the general fund. So it gets them, kind of gets health and park and reassessment back to where they're maintaining, and even maintaining the operating balance that they have now, and shifting it to the general fund, that so you have more funds available, because the general fund is the one with most in it. Now, what that does when you start shifting that, it also shifts your tax cap loss. So we had originally projected 8,955 for cap loss in the general fund. By shifting, we bumped it up to about 9.3. But these have all gone down accordingly. So that's kind of where we're at, and that is estimating the tax caps at what the DLGF estimated.
No vote right now?
I would say not, but it's an estimate, and I've had discussions with a couple people at DLGF. It all comes back to the same thing. It's a hard calculation to do. You cannot hardly, I mean, you're not gonna have any accuracy unless you get down to a per parcel basis, so that you're calculating on every parcel individually, and then coming up with that. And then, at this point, we don't have net assessed values, so you don't have that, you can't calculate a tax rate, even if you say everybody's levy goes up by 5% without a net assessed value, you can't calculate your tax rate. And then we also have unknowns for other units that we don't know if they're implementing a debt service. We do not know if they're reestablishing a cumulative fund. We don't know if they weren't at the max last year or this year, but they're gonna go to the max in '23. So there's so many unknowns out there that it's hard to say with 100% certainty that that's the actual number. I mean, my gut instinct, and you know, like I said, and I hope it's right, is that it's not gonna be the 10.9 million. But as I said before, I'm not gonna be the one to stand up here before you and say, I think it's only gonna be 8 million, and then, surprise, it's 10, and you've based your whole budget on that.
That's what I was gonna ask you, cause really the DLGF, like the estimate that you've got, we think that's somewhat conservative. I mean, historically, are they accurate, or are they a little bit more conservative? I mean,
I went back, I think it was 4 or 5 years, I don't know if I had the information for, but they were a little high for like the first 2 or 3 years. And then, last year, or I guess it's this year, they were low. And they're like, they estimated like 6.4, and it came in at 7.8. And when I went back and looked at what the net assessed value was versus the gross assessed value, our gross assessed value went up, but our net assessed value went down. So there are more deductions out there, there's maybe changes in buckets, you know, maybe abatements, maybe there was property that went from being on the tax roll to being exempt. I mean, there's any number of things that could have happened to cause that. So, but in turn, when we had a decline in our net assessed value, it shot our loss up. And we did have, I don't think I have the paper with me, but we had an increase of the growth quotient last year too, 422. Well, we went from 4.3 to 5% this year, and I've been here since 2000, I've never seen a growth quotient at 5%. It's historic, it's just high. And they have a whole calculation, it's based on farm ground and this and that, and how they come up with that. And I don't know all the ins and outs of that calculation, but with it going up 5%, you know, we historically have a problem with tax caps, and then when you raise your levy by 5%, you know that a good bit of that's gonna be eaten up with loss. So, unless we have a huge jump in net assessed value, it makes sense that we're gonna lose more. I think we'll lose more than the 7.8 that we're at this year. I don't know that it'll be 10.9. I think you could hope, at this point, if it was 9.5, that's better than 10.9. So, it's still a pretty scary number though. I don't think any of them do taxes. They just, in their roles, they don't do.
Sorry, got that.
Yeah. So, that's kind of where you're at with that. There's a lot of unknowns, and it's up to you what you wanna bank on for those. If you wanna stick with what the DLGF gave you, if you want to I mean, you can say, I think they're gonna be lower, but I wanna leave that in there, and then take your operating balance down, and then hope that it really isn't as bad as what it's gonna look like on paper in your projections. Or you can say, I'm gonna stick with it. I mean, I know another big concern that council members have had is revenue to expenditure, or at least appropriation. I mean, you're at 4.6 million, almost 4.7 million appropriations are shifting as you have done and changed it. But there again, that factors in the revenue column, that 10.9 loss in, tax caps, which is a growth. I mean, from what it was, not the projection, but from what it was last year, actually, it's 3.1 million higher, so I mean, that makes a big difference.
I just feel like we've been pretty good with cutting, and,
You've
know.
cut, I think it's in a different spreadsheet. I had a spreadsheet, a summary that kind of told you what you had cut. And I wanna say, out of the general fund, that was before Tuesday, you were right around $1 million, and then we shifted probably another $500,000. I shouldn't say cuts.
But yeah,
It's
shifting,
reductions
that's,
and
yeah,
shifts.
that's what I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
'Cause I felt like,
but we shifted another $500,000 out, I believe, so. It might. So, well, when I shifted that out, I bumped up payroll, because the payroll was hardly, I mean, it was like almost matching perfectly, and we have longevity that we have to address. I mean, if you did nothing else with payroll but to address your longevity, that's the part we need to know, so. I haven't had a chance to look at this and calculate, I may have a rough idea. No, I reduced that to what to say, this is what I think you can do in payroll, and keep your keep your, operating balance kind of within your goals. So if you want to reduce your goals, you can apply that, to your payroll numbers. It just all depends on where you wanna be. Yes. I'm gonna say it was somewhere around that same amount, as we were in that 15 to 17 range. I mean, without looking at it, I don't know. I'd have to go back and pull.
we still don't know. I could tell.
No, and I had a conversation with them yesterday. My gut instinct is we are not gonna be prepared. We are not gonna have the numbers that we need. We're not gonna have all the information we need for you to make a determination by September 13th. I think there's some issues. So, they could come and say, oh, here's all your numbers, and they could say that on September 8th, well, if there's issues in there, or if we have to hurry up and calculate and we push it through, I'm afraid you would have more errors than you would have,
Right.
than what you would want. So, I would have a plan B in place.
Like, adjust.
Yes.
It's just, not just me.
Well, whether you do a cost of living for 23, work through all the kinks, and, I mean, some of the feedback we've gotten on back already, I feel like there's gonna be some issues.
Oh, yeah.
Work through everything and have a good solid plan, put it in place for 24. That's one option. You have another option that you do nothing for, as of now, and then you amend the salary ordinance and appropriate in 23 from the auditor's office standpoint, I feel like that might be a little bit of a nightmare, especially when there was some discussion of going retroactive.
Yeah.
You know, if it was implemented in June or whatever, and then go retroactive for 600 and some employees until January 1. I mean, I don't know, we'll see what Julin thinks if she, but I feel like that will be a problem for them. I think it's a huge problem, it would be difficult. I'm, and then also what happens when you do that, what do you do with the people that's left between January 1 and whenever the retro date is? You go back and give them pay and they're no longer here? I don't know, it's messy, I wouldn't advise that. I mean, if you wanted to increase it at some point during the year, that's fine, just not retroactive. But one of the things that I think may help you, especially since right now we're facing these tax caps, the unknown, taxes will get calculated February maybe. And if, once they get calculated in February, you'll know right then what your tax cap loss is. And that would give you a better feel for where you're at least to address it for, if you wanted to address it for 24 or so. And I really have no idea how long it's gonna take to get everybody to a comfortable spot with the Baker Tilly.
It seems like there's big uproar about,
I mean, I feel like right now we're 3 months behind at least.
and
Three
probably
and a
three,
half.
and probably 3 months away from,
Yeah, I mean,
Even being
we're
somewhat
at
settled.
least 3 months behind where we should be right now.
yep,
So when we went through, because we kind of talked about the options, like you mentioned you do a raise, do retroactive. Can you also just do a raise without going retro? I mean, we could do that, right?
You could do that, you mean in 23, if you want, sometime mid-year you wanna do that, you could. It makes it a little messier. I feel like if you thought you were going to do, something in 23, mid-year at some point, I wouldn't do cost of living. I would say you need to catch it all then. If you feel like it's gonna be something more that you wait until 24, I would do a cost of living adjustment in 23. But that's just my opinion.
What's a typical cost of living adjustment?
It's been all over the place. I mean, we have been 1%, 1.5%, we've been 3, we've been 4,
Or,
we've been, I mean,
yeah, we're usually 2 to 4.
I mean, but quite honestly, based on these numbers, I don't know that you can swing 4 right now. So,
First discussion probably should be on some operating balance.
yes, if you determine that you want, you know, if you guys are all in agreement and that's something you wanna propose to the full council, then that would at least give us an idea of what we have left for payroll. We can kinda calculate, get a better idea on longevity with the information that was presented. And, kinda get a general idea, because I know that, I'm pretty sure, I don't know if it's in the budget program or if it's in the payroll program, you could run percentages. Can you not? In the budget program? But they can run percentages to tell you what that would cost. So if we had a target, then we could get there with that
but
percentage.
it's something that we have to clear with the full
The rest of
council
the council.
before we.
No, that's just what you're gonna be proposing to the full, I mean, cause
Oh.
really all you're doing now is you're proposing this budget
Right.
to the full council. There's still the ability in that budget adoption meeting is for you to have a discussion and maybe something gets changed. And yes, it's happened before. So, there's maybe new information or whatever the reason may be. There has been changes in the past, not often. And most of the time it goes through as proposed and, I didn't know if it was last year or the year before it was. Yeah, I didn't know if it was last year or the year before that, so we had one that was a little more, so. But, so that's kind of where you're at. I mean, it's still a proposal, you're presenting it to the full council for consideration.
Suggestion.
I just like to see it up there. Like,
Here, let me
I know
slide.
last year you kind of played around with some of them numbers.
I have,
Because I can hear all these words, but until I see it.
yeah, so like, if I get you right here, so like these that are in green, these are your levy funds. These are the ones that you have more limitations. And you actually, so, right here is, where's my, operating balance is right here. This, so that's the operating balance, and what I set that operating balance at is about 50% of the levy. Not 50% of the budget, because 50% of the budget would have to also include half of what you're getting in miscellaneous revenues. So if I go 50% of the levy, that is what's close to where you should be. So you see I have like 33, 1, 16, 7. When I played the numbers, that's how I got them there. So, and some of these others, I dropped them a little bit because right now, we needed it more in the general fund. And they can still fund their budget, they can still maintain it, they had kinda gotten, they were getting high. And what happens a lot of times is that, you build up an operating balance in the health department, or health fund, builds up, and then you shift that levy to the parks and let them build up, and then you shift it, and you keep shifting it back and forth to kinda help maintain it. I mean, it's kind of a constant flow. In the past, it was a lot easier to shift out of the general fund. But at this point, with tax caps the way they are, our operating balance is declining, our revenues are declining, and appropriations have gone up. So it's a lot harder to shift that out of there.
With concern, because, I mean, there's been a trend, we're seeing it, the schools, we're seeing it in the county. We continue to lose population. And our biggest chunk is, I don't know where we're gonna go, because I feel like we've really hit it. And I don't know if we need to look at when, absorbing different things, or, I don't know where else to cut.
I don't feel like there's much opportunity for cuts in your 2s, 3s, and 4s. I feel like you've pretty much got them. So, the issue that you really have at that point, the only thing you have left is personnel. But when you're talking that personnel is 75% or 75 to 80% of your general fund budget, and you have to start making cuts, that's not the only place you're gonna really make cuts and notice a big difference. You can cut out projects here and there, but eventually you have to do those projects, or you fund them from another source. And the other downside with your budget being 75 to 80% payroll is it doesn't go down. It only goes up. Whether you do annual increases, whether it's increased costs, well, that's a big hit you've taken in insurance this year. While the actual payroll amount that's the compensation amount, and then FICA and PERF is not going up much, insurance has gone up a lot. You're looking at, for the general fund, I think on the paper we have is 1.5, but I took out some of the new positions, it was closer to 1.3 or something to that effect.
So I have just one, and it just kind of hit me, because he talked about insurance. I don't know the history, because I know it's one way we save it. Didn't you guys, for a while, have a health clinic?
We still do.
Still do? Does that help our cost at all, or?
They say it does. My opinion is the problem we have with health insurance is that the commissioners make the decision not to increase the employee's cost of health insurance, and that the county will absorb it. Well, here's the thing, when you go 10, 15 years without an increase, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, we can't absorb this anymore. You're gonna kill your employees by the time you take that all out in one chunk, or what you can get in a chunk doesn't make a dent. So, that's a problem. I'm sure that, Julian, in the time you've been here, you can see the cost in insurance and how it increases, but it's only the employer's share that goes up. And I feel like the employer share on family plan this year went up like $6,000 or somewhere close to that. So
We've been doing that for 10 years.
I know at one point it was 2005, and I think they may have done something in like 14, 15, something like that. Yes, but I wanna say, yes.
But that's a commissioner decision.
That's a commissioner decision. But they may have done something in like 15, but still, when you're talking 10 years in between each one,
Yeah.
it catches up. And like I said, that's a big jump.
I have one more question for the girls. 'Cause it hurt.
Yeah, you're
Again,
on
I know
time.
we're doing dealing with the same kind of issues. And as people retire, obviously that gets, cheaper too, as salaries go down. But, on decisions, and I'm just trying to figure out where this would come from, because I know ultimately we do salaries and stuff. But on decisions, like, one of the things we're having to do, is absorb positions as people retire, and leave. And I know some of our offices are stretched pretty thin as it is, but where does that decision come from? Like, is
The
that a
council
commissioner
sets-
thing, or is that a council
The council
thing?
sets the number of positions. So the council, part of your role is to set compensation, set the number of employees, and set, job titles, job descriptions. You accept all that, you approve that, so just
So
about,
the department heads present it to the council and we approve them.
yes, you have to adopt that. Now, the only thing that you don't really have any say-so in is health insurance. As far as compensation, you don't have any say-so in health insurance, or I guess really PTO days. You don't have any say-so in that.
holiday.
And those are all benefits that employees receive.
Yeah, and I don't wanna, I'm just trying to,
And I'm not saying I really want the employees' insurance to go up. That's a problem.
no, but it explains why that.
It creates a problem with the budget. And I will tell you that I've heard the argument, well, that can be part of their rates. I'm like, well, that's fine as long as they have insurance.
Yeah,
I
but
said,
then
but
it
if they're on a spouse's plan or something else somewhere, then they didn't get that raise. You don't get that raise, you're on single plan and it went up, I don't know, $1,000, but you're on family plan and it went up $6,000. How do you explain that discrepancy in a raise?
Yeah,
So to me, it's not feasible to say, consider that part of your raise, because it's not
It hits people
equitable.
different.
Okay, what if on the operating balance, what if we were to, what did you say, it was 16, or
16,766,782.
What if we were to take the 766,000, drop it down to the operating balance down to 16 million? What would that do to it? And just take $750,000.
We could do that, and I could kind of even some of those other ones out, or even shift some of it around again to kind of cover where
The
you're at.
bottom line, would it help significantly in
Well, it would give
making
you
it more
it would
sustainable?
basically give you $750,000 that you could do towards raises. Now,
Or just,
the only caveat to that is, what do you do next year?
yeah.
That's, because raises go forever. So, That's the caveat.
I'm leaning towards we just hold off until we get everything back and everything, the dust settles, and we deal with it all at that time, because I just can't, I just see a huge mess. If we try to do something now, Baker Tilly comes back with something different, and then those things need to be altered, and it's just a nightmare, I think. I mean, especially from you guys' standpoint too, trying to sort it all out. And how, I don't know. At least, I mean, I hate the idea of kicking the can, but we don't have enough information to do anything with. I mean, from the assessed values to the payroll from Baker Tilly, we don't have enough information to make an intelligent decision.
No,
We just don't.
You have to. I mean, well, I mean, I would say a lot of your, in payroll, I would say the most of it's the jail. That's probably your biggest duck in the puddle that doesn't expend theirs, that has more vacancies, more turnover, and you have those open positions, so.
So wait a minute, let me clarify what you're asking.
Until they reduce those appropriations, you have to include that in the calculation. Yeah,
But you should, yes, you've got to remember that, that's what you're saying, yes, I get it. And that's why I think we were looking through this and saying, okay, well, if they haven't spent that much yet this year, then why will they need it that much next year with the exact same thought in mind? So there'll be money left over that they didn't spend this year that would roll over.
but you would also have to look at that you'd have to look at, whether it's encumbered or not. Because if
Right.
it's encumbered, you
Yeah.
cannot say that that's gonna increase your,
Like thinking of salaries and stuff, not being,
yeah, you can't
because,
encumber
because
those.
you assume every position that's open, they're gonna
But-
take that family plan,
Well,
because you
don't
have to
think
plan
it's-
for it.
I don't think it's every open position, it's really just new positions for the most part.
Is the
that
jail
they-
full now? Oh, the jail is
So the
full?
jail's full, so you're not gonna have, I mean,
But still,
you're gonna have some in there, but
yeah, because it wasn't full yet.
at the very beginning, but if it's full now, you're not gonna have the appropriations, and keep in mind, there was an adjustment made for their payroll, raising, but we also looked at what they had remaining, so I think it was probably adjusted. You won't see that big balance, I don't believe. No. I'm not saying, you're still gonna have, appropriation balances left. And then you turn around and say, okay, well, this much was encumbered out of it. So, but at this point, they have to assume that it'll all
Oh.
be spent.
That's a good question.
Figures include the request for additional. Do these calculations include the request for additional employees?
You mean when I put in
And
like
we
the
put
that we're in the-
27 million or what?
Yeah.
It's saying, this is what I think that you have available. Well, and
This
you're
is
looking.
based on the positions that are there now, not
Well,
not
it's
what's requested.
it's based on, in order to get at that levy and that operating balance, that's what you have available for payroll. So it's backing into it in a different way, saying this is what you have left. It's not and so you're looking at what you're currently funding. You don't have, what was that, $1.5 million or something for the general fund? So you don't have that in there.
So that doesn't help at all.
Yeah, we got excited.
It's like, yeah, I was like, oh, we thought of something else. No,
Sorry
okay,
about
no.
that.
Nope.
So none of those new positions that were on that list are included in that.
Nope, because they've not been approved yet.
That stinks. What's that shit?
So that's about all the good news I can give you.
You just let your day from yesterday carry over to us today, didn't you?
My water's still standing
Yes,
up.
your water's so good, yeah.
In the cup.
I've got a lid on mine just for that reason.
I just, I see where we're at, but I also concerned without, I mean, this year economically has been so
It's been hard on
tough
people.
for people. I hate to not have like any kind of cost of living. I mean, even if it's a smaller amount, are we able to do that at all?
Oh, I would think so. You should be able to get some sort of cost of living
Because
out there.
I figure, I mean, you know, Baker Tilly might come back and say, you know, they need to be at this or that. But even if we just do, you know, some, I don't think we're gonna overshoot what
But
Baker
we'll-
Tilly recommends.
But I think you need to kind of have a decision. I mean, my thought is, do you want to address Baker Tilly in '23, or do you want to say, work it all out, put it in your '24 budget? Because if that's what you're doing, go ahead and do your cost of living. But if you're planning on doing a cost of living and then trying to do Baker Tilly all in the same budget year, I think you may be creating more problems.
I have to say I agree with Calissa on that because, we saw our department, because Jimmy's trying to deal with it, and we have 13 of us, including Jimmy, and they have people in wrong positions,
So it could take a while.
I think so. I really think so. I think that instead of doing it half, you need to do it right the first time. And it's gonna
And I
take
agree
time,
with
because if
that,
our
too.
department's like that, what about highway? What about the clerk? What about some of these that's
Yeah.
got a bigger department? So I have to say I do agree with her on that.
Yeah,
So it could, I mean, in your thoughts, it could take at least 6 months to figure it out.
at this rate.
I think 3 months is a minimum probably. If you
And then we're
want to get it.
getting close already to budget.
Mhm.
So we agree to press that 2023 budget.
I think we have to, I mean, to do it right. I'd rather, because the last thing I wanna do, I mean, my biggest concern is, you know, I don't want us, you know, we gotta watch positions, we gotta watch all that, and I don't want us to, do it wrong and then have to do some major cuts. I mean, cause I feel like we've cut. I mean, and for anyone who's out there listening, I mean, we have worked to really cut what we can to try to do this. and
Well,
it's
8
just
people may
concerning.
hear that.
I know. Andy's at a soccer game. I don't think he's watching
Oh,
right now,
All right,
so.
well, Andy missed it.
Is this something we vote on, or is this just something we make a decision?
I would,
Well, they're gonna
I would
eventually-
make it official, you have a motion, a second, on what your proposed plan is. I don't know if you want to go through these first and address them.
I just don't know that, I mean, until the Baker Tilly deals with salaries and positions and stuff. They do, from what you guys have seen, I mean, I don't know what all you've seen, but probably more than us. Do they make recommendations for additional positions or things? They don't necessarily
They
do that.
don't do a
It's just-
staffing analysis.
Not a staffing now, okay. So really, they're just looking at what we have.
To me, it kind of looked like they're categorizing current employees and what their
They're
levels.
classifying
Yeah,
them.
classifying them.
That's
And some of these
a
are
good way to
obvious.
summarize it.
Some of these are just bigger ask than others. I mean, some of them is just like transitioning a position just to look a bit different. And so, I thought we had already approved, am I wrong, the 11 additional staff for the jail? We didn't approve that last year,
Last year?
or I mean, this year.
No, it wasn't additional staff. They brought it up and they withdrew it.
That's okay.
And so
But we
you-
had
you
talked
only-
about it.
You only address the increase in
In
wages.
pay. That's right, and then they moved that. Is that one that we have to, just looking at the list and priorities, is that the one, are we gonna have to deal with that because of the lawsuit or anything?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Well, I think the
Or
other
within
thing with that
staffing.
is that we're waiting on
the
an
shifting
additional
stuff.
study on shifts and things like that, so that maybe the need is not necessarily 11.
But our jail staff, as far as what
There's supposed to be another analysis done.
we don't have that on that.
So it looks like maybe it's easier to discuss where we are, obviously on payroll right now. Do we want to even discuss adding any new employees?
I don't, personally, I don't think we need to do that at this point. I don't think we can afford to do that at this point.
The ones on here, election director,
No.
the 11
No.
correctional officers. What was the cost? Those aren't new positions, right?
Were they just shifting?
They're not new positions, but they want them funded by the general fund instead.
It's
They
'cause
wanted-
they're
they
losing their
wanted-
grant, aren't they? Is that the
So
one?
basically, they are new positions because they're grant positions, and they want them to be county employees.
I'm gonna say no to that too.
Well, I can make this easy. I feel the whole, but,
I will tell you
the
that
easiest one.
the ones at the
GIS.
bottom are, the ones at the bottom are different.
Well, that's the one, that's what they requested, right, is to
Yeah.
eliminate that position? Well, that's easy.
Add overtime for emergency management, yes, that overtime.
The,
But
I
is-
will tell you, the emergency management, they've requested that for
Yep.
7,
we're-
8 years.
Before we eliminate GIS manager, I wanna make sure what we're doing.
Yeah, I agree.
So is that gonna be absorbed somewhere else? I mean, it's in the engineering department. Is that the
The-
extra position we had?
Ryan was in that position and he left, and the plan that was put forth by the auditor and the engineer was they were eliminating that position, going to have a contract to help with some of the more technical things on the map
On that part of
drawing
it.
and stuff like that.
Okay, cause I had thought that that was, Barbara's position was being.
No,
so
he's
we'll
like
still
the
have a-
GIS director, but
Okay,
now that he's
so-
by himself, I don't know who he's gonna direct.
He can direct himself. But I just wanted to make sure we still had GIS, because obviously so many of our systems are through, okay, so that's that extra position that we haven't filled. Well, that's easy. Yeah. Okay, so we can do that.
I'm gonna make the motion. With regard to the requested amendments to the salary ordinance for the year ending December 31st, 2023, amendments requested to the salary ordinance. 9608, adult protective services, convert a secretary to investigator. I'm gonna make a motion that we deny that. 0232 courts, increase the transcript appropriation. I'm gonna amend, motion that we deny that. 0062 election board, add election director, move that we deny that. 0302 emergency management, add overtime, move that we say no to that. 0170 GIS, eliminate the GIS manager. I'm gonna move that we approve that. 0380 jail, add 11 COs. I'm gonna move that we deny that. 0234 juvenile court, move 2 CASA grant positions to county general, 1 full-time, 1 part-time, move that we deny that. 0005 sheriff, add building security officer, move that we deny that. 0012 veterans assistance, add 4 VSOs, 1 admin, upgrade director, convert part-time administrative assistant to full-time, move that we deny that, simply because we cannot afford it right now. Any of these right now.
Can I discuss, or do I have to make it?
No, you discuss.
Okay. The main one, and it's probably the most cost efficient of them, I do have concern because just of the adult protective and, how child protective services work, how they were talking about how, really, for the most part, secretarial roles are just, everything's going in through a main system, from what and tell me if I'm wrong, but, It's kind of like what they do with child services now. They just report it to the state, and then it gets dispersed out, and you have people investigate. That's probably one of my main concerns, because it sounds like duties and responsibilities might be changing. But I think it's not a new position, it's just different. That's probably one of my concerns there. But I mean, I agree on anything like new. We just can't do right now until we get some of those studies back and the other things. I don't know, what do you think of that one?
Is that something Baker Tilly's gonna come back with?
Well, there's already an investigator in there, so they'll have one, graded, and these, I will tell you, these dollar amounts in here are based on 2022 rates, so I don't know what the new rate would be for an investigator, so I can't say that it's $503.
I would agree. But is that, I see where Councilman Thompson's going now, because if this, how each department head's getting their things and looking at it, is that something they can address in the Baker Tilly? Is that kind of where you're going with it?
The council ultimately has to approve it. I mean, they can request that.
But I mean, instead of
You-
doing it now, is that something that like
They
the
could do it
prosecutor
all at the same time when they do the Baker
through the Baker
Tilly.
Tilly? Okay,
Yeah.
then I see where you're going with it. Because that would just make it more clear and all at once. And then, just question-wise, then is that gonna cause, based on what we're seeing, is that gonna cause CASA to lose 2 positions? Based on that?
I'm almost certain they're restructuring something I think it's coming to you in September.
Okay. And then where was the building security officer supposed to go? Is that here? Don't we have one already?
From what I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, there's no contract to have building security here. So anytime
No contract with who?
I don't know.
Because isn't there sometimes somebody here, but
There
they
is,
get
and
pulled?
that's why we're like
we
the
share
lowest on the
him with-
totem pole. So if they need him, they pull
Juvenile
him.
Center, I think.
Okay.
That,
But I don't know that they put that explanation in there where it was for exactly.
I think I know just because of conversation with,
And that could be, I don't know, but I don't
If
remember.
it's stuff they can address in Baker Tilly, like the change of position and stuff, I get that. That makes sense. It's not quite as dramatic.
Yeah, that's where I'm.
It's still dramatic, but not
let
quite
me
as
stand
dramatic
corrected, the sheriff's department is not required to cover this building.
to have it.
That's what it is, not a contract. And therefore, they pull from here. If we have someone here, they pull from here first, instead of taking somebody from.
What you're saying is because they have to have somebody for the courts.
Yes.
They're required. I got you. You can start calling this a courtroom, I guess, if they want.
I feel like it's important sometimes.
I was like, so,
You're up higher. Get your robes.
Nah.
Yeah, get a pretty dress like Chris Newton wears.
Okay, well, with that in mind, and I mean, if we needed to, I mean, the added security officer could be something, I mean, potentially we could deal with differently other than budget. I mean, and, obviously security's been a topic, we've been hearing about it, whether it be the building or just even having personnel here. I think that's something we could deal with even potentially outside of the budget if we had to. So I will second.
right, a motion and a second. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, so motion passes 3-0.
You got all of those, right? Or you guys-
Pretty much all of them except GIS, we agreed.
Yeah.
The ones that are in the next section, they were ones that were being shifted shifted from one funding source to another. We technically have already done those, I just want to enlist them, and now we would need to add another one that's from county general to recorder perpetuation. Cause you approved that
Which one?
recorder, you did that Tuesday.
So two,
To reimburse, is that right?
No, we actually moved an employee there.
No, we didn't.
two,
We slid. I'm
That
pretty
was the
sure
word.
Marie made that motion. She was gonna
Perpetuation.
slide an employee,
Slide.
and I may have coerced you to use that word.
and we did it from.
County general.
County general.
I wanna say with insurance is like $60,000 or maybe more than, something like that.
Do we need to note that when we, no, we don't.
I've got it, hold on.
I mean, for the.
So there's one
motion,
additional
whatever.
position.
Well, I already did that on the worksheet. I did that based on Tuesday's meeting.
So we don't really need to make a motion for this bottom part? Or even
That was
the-
just more awareness, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's
Melissa?
more awareness, just to let you know what's going on. We've
So we
already-
did keep remind me just to verify, I know that we've discussed it multiple times, bike park manager, did we keep it, we did not put it in general, did we?
No, it stayed. That
Okay.
was a no. Deputy court clerk was a new clerk incentive to county general was yes, and then we reimbursed part of that salary. And then from county general to clerk perpetuation was a yes, we did that. And then we did from county general to recorder perpetuation.
No,
He
it's
was a
in
no.
the same,
He
it's
was
in
a
the
no.
same position it was in before.
Yeah, he was a no. So yes, yes, no, yes.
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 Okay, what's next here?
Still to figure out.
Okay, I have one other, just random, because I think I know what the answer's gonna be. There was, I don't even know when we discussed this, or if it just gets shifted when we do other stuff, but I know we had talked about, and there have been requests too about the retirement plans with the sheriff's department. Is that something that gets addressed through budget or not?
It's not been addressed yet.
Yeah. Sorry,
I guess I would've thought if you're not making any other increase of
Versus-
the cost of living,
then we
but, I
have to
mean,
kind of wait
at
till
least
next
for
year.
the hazard and all that. But what you may find is some of that is addressed through the paper title,
Okay,
so.
so it might be yeah, it might be a decision more for 2024. Or 20,
Fortunately,
that they will do in 2023 for 2020.
What do you mean, Dave? Might be you.
We just,
You're getting good at this.
I'm trying, those numbers. Oh, I do.
so do we need to,
Yeah, so now where do we go?
So when I'm looking at longevity, so just to check, Julian, like when I look at the county general total, that was 616,000 total for 22, and 380 plus the sheriff, which I'm estimating that is somewhere around, well, I did the difference, so it's, where's my number? It's 267, 755 we add on, plus another 20, maybe 300,000. So it's going to maybe 680. So we can do 700,000 just to be safe. So about an $84,000 increase. So, yeah, so the 616 would be included. 616 includes the sheriff, right? Okay, so that 616 is included in our budgeted payroll. So we needed a difference, so you're looking at maybe $85,000 difference in longevity cost. So that does give you where we're at right now. So the difference is about 500, well, it's not quite 470,000 maybe. And if you take the 85,000 out of that, your 395 is what would be the general fund. But if you're wanting to shift or cut 766,000 out, we can calculate what that is based on that. What percentage, what would be the closest percentage? And to
Can you do that now?
That's where I was going with it,
I
I think.
can probably get pretty close, but, 'cause, I mean, I feel like if we, it's gonna be a rough number, but if you take the 22,289 and put a percentage to it,
I don't know what she's gonna say, so,
if you put a percentage to that,
yeah.
while some of it's part-time, some of it's other things, it'll at least get us in the ballpark. Does that make sense to you, Julian?
Okay.
Well, but if we, I mean, even if we wanna bump that to, I mean, no. But, so I kinda bumped it to
Is that as well?
25. I actually have like an extra $10,000 in the
Well,
sheriff.
we should.
Yeah, we should.
So,
Cause I mean, I was on budget last year, I think we should, based on compared to what we did.
no, I mean, even,
Absolutely.
So I don't.
I think if we do 700, even if we wanna do 7.25
Wait,
for
right now.
longevity for that,
Somewhat that.
yeah, but even if we go 7.25 on that, but you'd have to have a lot. That's what, 250 people? We know that's not that, but
I think
it would kinda make, at least it would cover us.
it's close. Yeah. Let's do it.
So if we said 20,
Just trying to see if we can, like that recommended amount, just make that a nice number. I just hate such simple stuff.
and that would also, I think it would cover any increase, any percentage increase in longevity for merit officers. Roughly.
Oh, she's clicking.
Oh, she's clicking.
No, I like seeing the new numbers pop in.
I haven't done anything yet, so you're gonna have to wait.
I know, but I get excited. It is. I know. Still want that puppy in the hand. Still don't have it. I'm gonna be pretty disappointed if it doesn't come at Christmas. Huh? I know, your standards. What's a small one? They're so cute. Come on, it is on transmitted now. Has it been like good?
How often does our insurance get it out? Do we,
Every
Like
year.
Request
Every
for,
year.
is it?
What
needs
about football
batteries.
players? Jazz hands.
Yeah, that number. That number confuses.
Kind of like the racquetball played there.
Oh, that's true. It's a storage.
Heated. Heated.
That one. Put it- What's your picture about? And you don't have to chase it, and you're doing really well. Got really good. I wear, yeah, like, Jim Griffin, swing right out, you feel his collar, and I'm like, hi, you. Back of the head. With your head and hang
But I
in place
would
wherever you
think
want.
that they could get,
Oh,
I think we're, well, do that for our setup. Wait, there's family.
I found out my part. Here's what I'm struggling with. This right here, I have to calculate that on an all full time, where this is calculated on some of them being part-time and not perf eligible. And I don't know what that breakdown is. I guess I could back that out. Figure out what that is. Let's see. 2591 100. 142. $18,252. I mean, in the general fund, without doing the 766, you have about $1 million left over. When you subtract out longevity increases.
So roughly $1 million after.
No, it's only an increase of 130, because you have to add in perf and all that, so I mean, so with that, it's like 132,000 increase from 22 to 23 for longevity.
That,
So you have about $1 million, so if you take, the only problem is I don't know what's full-time in there, or if you're increasing part-time, or just only full-time.
What are we doing?
You've gone both ways. Last couple of years, you've increased part-time.
We have.
We don't have a lot of part-time employees though, do we? Yeah. seasonal.
A lot,
Do those get, I mean, is that qualified different as part-time? I mean, are they still considered part-time employees, or are they considered more seasonal? Is that a different, okay, so- other, okay. Yeah, so it'll be. I mean, I'm kind of.
So, let's see.
I don't know how much, I don't know how much. it would save us. That would be the question. I don't think it's gonna be a huge amount. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be a huge amount. It's a pretty good gig for like college students. So that's what. It's kind of fun too. Since I'm-
If my calculations are correct, that is a 3%. That's 3%.
That's what the 3% cost of living is? Is that what you're saying, or?
Yes, so I took, what I did was I took,
It's 800,000.
actually I took C3, I should take C2. Or
That's
B-
given to every
B3.
employee.
So it's 814,000 if you do 3%, and that's your, that can't be your per, but that's 7.65%. That's 14.2. Looks low though. But anyway, so there's 815,000 would be the cost of doing. That includes longevity too, so it's not gonna be that much. So you're not gonna be increasing your longevity by twice. So,
So adding the $766,000 back in would give the percentage increase, take it from 2.105 to 3?
I've not even added 766 back in.
So as it is before the 766.
And that's for the general fund,
Yes.
so. There's something off there. No, that's the total there. I think what's making the difference out of whack is that right there. It's your perf, because it's on everything. And not, doesn't count part-time, but everything that's not eligible for perf. I need to look at my numbers closer, that's what I think something's out of whack.
I'm gonna say I don't necessarily need crayons, but maybe colored pencils here, because,
That's what I'm trying to figure out, something seems out of whack.
yeah, because if it's at 2.105 without adding the 766,000, sorry, back in, if we added the 766,000 back in, we get to 3%, or you're saying 3% is?
No, that's without it, so like,
So
you-
instead of 2.105, it should be 3%?
Well, that's what I'm trying to check, but so like right here,
How do we do that?
if you have, see this number right here, that includes your FICA, your perf, and it's on everything. Longevity's in there, part-time's in there.
Everything.
Everything's in there. Anything that is related to payroll is in there. Stipends don't usually get increases. They would get perf, but, so the difference between that's like not quite 1.2 million. 1,144,407. Huh? They get perf, but they don't, you normally get a percentage raise. Stipends don't. They normally, if it's a $1,500 stipend, it's, yeah, but they get perf. Or a lot of it in the sheriff's department doesn't get perf. That's in there, and that's calculating on the sheriff's budget payroll. They don't get perf. So the perf numbers are off, so the perf's high in here because I'm basing it on the percentage on the whole thing. So you understand what I'm saying, right? There's so many things there's things in there that are not perf eligible. So you can shift some of this 3.2 million, you can shift it to payroll. I know you did.
Yeah.
This right here, the
Sarah.
109,833, this column right here, that's what I estimated the increase was for longevity. Yes, for 23. And that kind of, you're in agreement on that? I mean, so this tells you what you have left over, but because this perf is so exploded, you've got more of that so that you can get closer to that. And that's at 3%. So like I took this number right here, which is 22, multiplied by 3%. And it came up with a total. That's times, is that the right column? F12 times 7.65, 14.2, $815,000. No. But I think that you could preserve your, if you did a 3%, you could preserve your operating balance. I mean, what I'd really like to do is like go through and run these numbers and make sure that they're correct, because it's kind of a quick and dirty calculation.
Is there any CARES Act money left?
There's some, I don't know what the balance is, and I don't think they weren't able to encumber all of it because they didn't have anything, so it's gonna be really hard to
know how I feel.
track that. But I will tell you, if that CARES Act money right now is sitting in that county general, June 30th balance. So if you take it out of there, you're still impacting the general fund.
Yeah.
It's not separated out.
I was trying.
Yeah, it's not separated out.
Stipend again, but.
Yeah, 'cause now it's just dumped in there, isn't it? The general.
Yeah, at this point, I don't think there's much
huge
appropriation left. But appropriation does not equal balance, what was left. But I will tell you that technically, we spent all that CARES Act money. Because what it was considered was reimbursement for our public safety. We paid out our public safety, we got reimbursed. And then.
Paid it out some more.
And then we said, oh, we were gonna pay that public safety anyway, so we spent it again.
Yep.
So,
Okay.
it's no longer free money.
Trying to think outside the box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if Cheryl included that in our revenues. So in the revenue projections, I don't know.
Oh, yeah, for
Good.
they have to do it, don't they? Oh. So, but that's what, so that's kinda what you're looking at. I mean,
But then you'd put the 300,000, I don't know if you'd put it, you wouldn't put it back in there.
well,
I don't know what we're doing.
I don't believe that you would double post it, make that adjustment. I think they're pretty much considering that gone. And at this point, with it already being in the general fund balance that we have on, that we're using for our calculations. And I would also have to go through and check it, if the health, the parks reassessment, Cambridge, if they can fund those, and it still
That
works.
rate, or
I mean, if you wanna go that, you wanna go different, but, I mean, at least if nothing else, if you wanna tell me to calculate it 3%, I can calculate it and give you better, make sure that,
Could you calculate it both? I think we did something like that last year where
Two
we
and a
did
three.
calculate like
Two
a
and a
2
three.
and a 3,
is that
2.5.
Yeah, I calculated both of those and see.
Have we ever done it?
do you have access to the budget program? Cause that would probably be a lot easier. Although I think it probably does the same thing, it calculates it on everything, I don't know that it breaks it down per salary.
So what we
I
need,
thought you
once
had
we get
something in
those, just
payroll
need
that
to
would do
meet,
that.
decide.
I mean, I have a spreadsheet that I've built, but the problem is, it's based on last year's numbers. I mean, like employment, who was there, what rate they were getting, where they're at, longevity and all that. So all of that would have to be like updated, which, I mean, I could do it, but.
Yeah.
Insane.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, stop.
So if you have something like that already, and at least get a better idea, is it by fund? Oh, okay, that works. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
What next?
I mean, if you what percentages do you want us to calculate on? 2 and 3%.
2 and 3.
Okay.
Unless we wanna do 2.5, but I don't know how, if you've ever done that. 1.85.
1.8362.
Julian, when I did mine, I put a drop-down box, and you could select the number, and then you just had it multiplied by that
I remember
drop-down
Cheryl
box.
had it, like,
And then you push
last
a
year,
button and select
when
which
it
one you
showed
want,
me
and it
the
changed all your
options.
numbers for you. That might be easier, and then calculates the FICA, the birth, and it might be easier to do a drop-down box or
I have
something,
to
so you
take
can get
off.
different percentages.
Just to keep in mind, I'll probably take off.
Or different rates on
20
amounts.
This is 23rd that he sent that out.
Food for thought.
For our next meeting?
No, I'm
Yeah,
just.
we need
That
to do that.
is,
I think that's,
so,
yeah,
before you stop,
I think that's
this
the final
page.
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what's going on with this.
just kind of give you an update. These are 3 funds that you're gonna have a problem funding. And the DOC grant, I'm not sure about because they have even years, odd years, but what I've calculated, there's issues. I don't know if the revenues are not high enough. I mean, if the revenues should be higher if there's an issue with the grant amount. So, but this one may be a problem. The sheriff's sale is always a problem, it's part-time. Normally what we do is adjust it down. This is how much you can spend out of there for payroll, cause this is what we're projecting. So, that's normally what we do, we just make the adjustment and say, here's your number. If you're okay with that, I can change that appropriation accordingly.
Well, yeah, if it's telling them this is all you've got and that's all you have, yeah.
I mean, this has been going on for years, we have to adjust it. The supplemental adult probation. They have like $165,000 budget request. Their annual revenue is about $100,000 a year. I checked last year, it was like 132. The year before that, it was right around the 100, I think it was 90-some thousand. This year, they're on pace to be closer to $100,000 a year, unless they have like a big boom in the last 4 months. I spoke with Bill Watson, which he's in court services, which is over probation department. He's gonna have a discussion with Leanna, and this is kind of something we've been talking about for a long time, that eventually they're gonna hit that wall. This is the year, 23, we're hitting that wall. And really, they have salaries, so payroll, and they have one other line that's incentives for $1,500.
An increase of 1,000 from last year.
Pardon me?
That's an increase of 1,000 from last
Yeah.
year.
So,
Then it was only 500, they cut it this last year.
but this year they requested more, didn't they?
They requested 1,500 this year, it looks like.
I know she said that she's maxed out, she told me that they're maxed out,
They're past max.
yeah. Well, at the amount that that they'll fund, yeah,
Yeah.
the state will
So,
fund.
they're going to review their options, and will probably present something to direct you on, what works for them to make it going, so they can make it a fundable budget. So that's just kind of a heads up.
And then we're just in a waiting game on that.
Yes. Leanna is out of the office this week, so Bill is gonna talk with her next week, so.
So we'll need to come back to the.
We'll get some numbers, hopefully, Julian and I'll work on those numbers and see if we can get something put together with the information she has with current employees and rates that will make it more accurate than what I have in total. So I think we should be able to come up with something that's a lot closer. And we'll calculate it. We'll give you some various options. And then I'll kind of make sure that what you're doing is fundable, where it puts you at with operating costs. But it does help to have a direction.
So these are the only 3 funds we still have left to deal with then?
Basically, the adult probation, DOC grant, and the sheriff's, I think they're payroll only, so we've kind of been holding off. Supplemental, I missed, they have like a $1,500 appropriation in there or something that request that I missed, but most of it's payroll. Out of the 165,000, 1,500 of it. But we knew that there was gonna be a funding issue. I mean, since the beginning, I knew we were having funding issues. It's kind of why they're always at the bottom of the page. So, there's another one that's maybe health immunization grant. There'll be a funding issue with that. But it's a grant, and usually they just have to write it out and see how it happens. Because sometimes it's because they've got things, they've not moved over, they've not done. Yeah, but it still looks like there's funding issues. Well,
We still will be able to fund what they give them, I mean, it's not, you're gonna lose an employee
no,
on it, cause it's not in payroll now.
no, I don't know if it's operating or professional, I can't remember now what the line is.
It's in contractual or professional, I can't remember.
So something like that, so, I mean, and they would be beholden to their cash balance, so it does, so if more money comes, if you leave it at what it is, they can only spend what they have in cash, so.
Professional services, which was over appropriated, the
Yes.
thing, cause I'm like, they don't even get that much.
But that may be part of the problem, because now it's showing, hold on a minute. Yeah, 75407. I don't have that in there, so it was passed. The committee looked at it and accepted it.
Yeah, when I saw it, I'm like, wait a minute, that's too much money, because they should only be from
So
Denver.
$8,794 is what they are over appropriated, cause like if you look at the June 30th balance, they're negative $4,000. And that's why, if the wrong fund. Oh, you mean the even and odd year? Oh. That's what, when you have these even and odd years on grants, I'm always a little concerned, make sure I get,
So let me look and see.
but I feel like I added them together, did something. Yeah, cause they had a positive 2158 and a negative 6107 cash balance on June 30th of the two funds. But so anyway, that's what you're looking at, but they're limited, so if there's something if it's a timing issue on a revenue or something like that, this will address. I mean, if you leave it, they're limited what their cash balance is, what they can issue claims for, so. I think it's more of a, here's a footnote, not necessarily anything you need to do with, because that's what their grant amount is, 75,407. And if we appropriate less, then that's a problem with their grant. So it's easier to leave it there and limit them on what they spend. Pick your battles.
So the sheriff's sale, you can take care of.
Yeah, because it's part-time, it's like a process server, I think is what it is, and so we just say, you only get this much money, so that equals however many hours, so have fun till, yeah, so, but they get, it's like a block of hours that, this is what you can get for this amount of money. With the sheriff's sale, yeah, that,
Stuff that they confiscate.
yeah. So like, if you look at it, it's 4,200, 4,300 that they're shy, so we would have to adjust, take 4,254 off of 22,587. And then it comes to zero, that's what you appropriate, and done with it.
What do we say about adult education?
They will
Get back to us.
get back to us with solutions. The sheriff's cell we can adjust, and DOC's a grant, and that's another odd year, even year. And there again, they're limited to what their grant is, what the revenues are, so. But I showed them at a negative 16,000 at the end of December. I showed them at a negative 16,000 at the end of December, so. But there again, that could be timing of a revenue.
What else do we need to do now?
That's about it, so I mean, we will calculate, we'll do, at least do 2 and 3, we may come up with a couple others, and that way you will have decisions, so, I mean, I'm thinking at this point, we need one more meeting, and it shouldn't be very long.
Okay. A calendar for you guys.
I will say that next week's probably not, by the time, we looked at next week and we had a lot of days that were not good for anybody.
Yeah, I think if we didn't have this meeting today, I think we were looking at most September.
Yeah.
But that
So I
would
think
also
next-
give Julian and I an opportunity to get some different calculations, and once we get those, I can share them with you so you have a little bit of time to review them.
What do we
What is
think?
the 29th? Monday the
29th?
29th is the change? No. Oh, would I be done by 6? Do you think?
I would hope so. Are you starting at 3:30? Look, we're gonna get you out here 40 minutes early.
I know.
You're welcome.
So if we start at 3:30 on the 29th,
Does that work for you
that
guys?
work for you guys?
On
Monday?
Monday.
Monday the 29th.
And I think, like I said, that should get us pretty well done, and then that would allow the auditor's office to get the final numbers in, to get everything ready, so it's ready for your meetings in
the
September.
meeting.
Might
Yeah.
not be a good day, wait a minute.
Do what?
It might not be a good day.
The 29th?
It is. I can do it.
Oh, it may not be a good day.
Yeah.
It works for you?
Yep.
Works for you, Marie?
Yep.
Works for you, Brenda? All right.
Monday the 29th. We'll recess the budget committee